Hi, I'm Cameron, a third year PhD student at King's, and I'm going to be talking about the work that I've been doing over the past 3 years to try and use computational physical techniques on a group of molecules called polyphenols. So what are polyphenols? These molecules are produced by plants as a means of fighting off infection, and when we consume plants, these molecules enter our system. Our molecule is called epicatechin, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the physical techniques we use to try and understand it. Let's begin with an atom in a box. There are no forces on it, so it will not accelerate. We can predict its position at time t if we know its current velocity and position. Since we're in a simulation, we do not need to measure this, we already know it. That's great, so we can predict where this ball is going to go. When we add a second atom, it gets a little bit more complicated. On the right, you can see the Lennard-Jones potential graph, which essentially describes interaction when the distance is very far, but then as soon as they get close together, there's a strong repulsive force, which is why they are vibrating. Even with these simplified rules, we can still see some interesting behaviour. Principally, we can start to model phases. Here we get an insight into the internal dynamics of a gas, liquid and solid. Velocity and therefore temperature is indicated by the colour of the atoms, brighter or faster. Similarly, we can look at how different phases interact. We can look at what happens when two solids of different temperature collide, and how heat propagates through that solid. We can see crystal phases and how they affect heat transfer. We can see why gas in a box will expand to fill it, and the physics behind concentration gradients. If we start to imagine our atoms as larger units, either collections of atoms or molecules or bigger units than that, we can investigate things like Brownian motion, as in why dust seems to dance in the air, explosions, and even a meteor crash. All of this complex behaviour comes from a very simplified simulation. There's only one potential term, there's no consideration of charges, every atom is the same weight and size, same element, there's only 2 dimensions, so you can quickly see how this might get more complicated. Even our more detailed simulations have to lose some information. We use atomistic data, which means we ignore the dynamics of the electron and just treat each atom as a single unit with an associated charge. This is of course quite a large approximation, but it is necessary since including electron dynamics becomes prohibitively expensive. Let's have a quick look at even impossible for systems larger than a certain number of atoms. Thanks, Cameron. First of all, let's have a quick look at the actual epicatechin molecule. Here it is folded a little bit due to its location within the binding site, but as you might remember from what we've seen previously, it is a relatively simple molecule with these phenolic rings. But interestingly, we are trying to see what effect epicatechin and its metabolites can have on flow-mediated dilation, which is the blood vessel's ability to dilate when there is an increase in blood pressure. And essentially how this protein works is there are 2 major domains. There's the kinase domain and the firm domain, and they form an interface between the 2 of them that essentially is auto-inhibitory. So this protein isn't activated in this form. It needs these 2 domains to essentially separate from each other in order to become fully activated, and we hypothesize that this molecule here is able to accelerate that process of activation. This project is also extremely multidisciplinary because at the same time I am in the wet labs trying to use this ex vivo animal model as a means of further elucidating the method of action of epicatechin and its metabolites in the context of flow-mediated dilation, so I can directly measure the dilatory response of a pig artery with and without the presence of these molecules.